This is CUNY TV, the City University of New York.
Hello, I'm Doug Muzzio. This is City Talk. New York City, entrepreneur city, new tech city, information city. Some numbers: 65,658 versus 35,218. Second, or the number two, 41, 50, and 72. And finally, 59% and 8%. Here to explain those and other numbers, to look at New York City's present and future, is Jonathan Bowles, the Executive Director of the Center for an Urban Future. The Center, a New York City public policy think tank, is dedicated to independent research about key policy issues facing New York and other cities. It is one of New York's most influential policy organizations. Before joining the Center, Jonathan worked as research director for former New York State Senator Franz Leichter and spent time as a freelance journalist. Welcome back to CUNY TV, Jonathan.
Great to be here, Doug.
Okay. I've decided I'm moving back to New Jersey. From New Jersey. I'm moving into Sunnyside. I'm running for mayor, and I'm going to win. You're going to get a half hour talking with me. What is the half hour? The Wednesday after Election Day. What do you tell me? What should I know?
Well, good luck to your candidacy, first of all.
Thank you. I will expect us to sit down and have numerous conversations, but go ahead.
Well, I think the foundation for New York is a lot stronger than it's been. And on economic development, on kind of workforce development, there's still a lot that needs to be done. I think one is we're a city of small businesses. There's so many more small businesses today than there were just 20 years ago. But I think the thing for the next mayor to focus on is how do we get more of our small businesses to become medium-sized and large businesses.
Okay, so that gets to the first number that we talked about, and that was 65,658 versus 35,218. Talk about those numbers and the study that produced those numbers.
Sure. Well, we just did a study that looked at how many new businesses are incorporated every year in New York City and each of the 5 boroughs. And we brought this back to 1991, looking at every single year. And the increase is phenomenal. 86% more new businesses were incorporated in the city of New York in 2011 than in 1991. And so that's the figures that you're talking about. The 65,000 or so figure is the number we have. The new businesses started up just within the year 2011. So we've become much more of an entrepreneurial city. And again, this is great for New York. People are starting businesses left and right in every corner of the city. But we've got to figure out how do we get more of these to survive and how do we get more of these to the next level.
Have you followed up, or do you intend to follow up that study with a morbidity rate analysis? How many of these businesses die? Do any of them have resurrections? What sectors they're in? I mean, you've got a lot of granular data out there that could be very interesting from a policy point of view.
We are looking at that, and we hope to publish something. I think one thing we're already working on, and which we've done a little research on, is just how big the businesses actually get. And I think that, you know, again, this is overall great news that people are starting businesses in New York City, but we are finding that the biggest growth in our businesses is very small companies. Like there's been an absolute huge growth in businesses with less than 5 employees.
Wow. Now, generally, I guess mainly anecdotally, who is opening these businesses? Are they niched by geography? Are they niched by ethnicity, race, whatever, gender?
Well, I think people are turning to entrepreneurship more than ever before. So it's a real mix of things. Just like New York is such a mix of people, I think that, you know, on the one hand, in the last few years, we've seen this like incredible burst of tech entrepreneurship. So, you know, 5, 10 years ago, people that were graduating from Harvard Business School were not really coming to New York to start a business. If they were coming to New York, they were generally coming to work on Wall Street or if they were going to start a business, they were usually doing that in Boston or on the West Coast. But now they're actually coming to New York to start a tech company. Other college grads, they're turning to entrepreneurship now, partly because I think they're not getting jobs, you know, in the economy. But we're seeing entrepreneurship all over the 5 boroughs, so it's clearly not just those kind of tech jobs. The Bronx has seen a 305% increase in business startups over this 20-year period. Brooklyn, 161%. Frankly, every borough but Manhattan was really off the charts in growth of new businesses. Manhattan was still up, but only 25%.
Yeah, but it starts with a bigger base?
Yeah, I mean, still Manhattan, with all the people here that are living here and also working here, this is still a place where there's so much opportunity for business. So we have more businesses every year start up in Manhattan, but the real growth is happening in the boroughs.
Okay, that was the second number. Number 2, we are now the second largest tech sector outside of Silicon Valley, including, I guess it's 128 in Boston?
Yeah, in the last 5 years, New York has just kind of like had this explosion of technology startups.
Why? What is it?
Well, I mean, a lot of the trends in technology today are really playing to New York's strengths. You know, back in the 90s or before then, you know, the technology companies that were being created, you needed a really big engineering team. You needed a lot of space. People were building the plumbing for the internet. They were building semiconductors. And it didn't really play to New York City's strengths. But today, technology is all about how technology is interacting or disrupting traditional industries like advertising, publishing, media, finance, health. And all of those traditional industries we do really well in.
Go ahead, keep going. I mean, so the internet in some ways is truly revolutionary in terms of the way business is done, but as you suggest, it plays to our strengths. How?
Well, you know, I mean, like in the old days, it was just like a lot of like hardcore technology, technical stuff, engineering talent, building things. And now it's like, it's especially as the growth of mobile devices and the internet, you have a need for people to sell things over the web. So we've had all these e-commerce sites like Gilt Group and so many others. You have a growing need to create content for mobile platforms and the web, and we're great at creating content. And then you also have the need to provide services through the web or through mobile devices. And again, that kind of business-to-business service model has always been something that New York's good at. And so, you know, these are, again, the trends that are at play. And again, New Yorkers have always done those things. So, you know, at the same time, you can start a tech business today for a lot cheaper than ever before.
Because you don't have those sunk engineering and infrastructure costs.
Exactly. Plus, you know, you don't even have to actually be an engineer to start a business. You can, you know, hire a coder, or there's lots of shops that you can do this for a really small amount of money. So all of that just makes us easy for New York. At the same time, I think that, you know, we have an ecosystem for technology today that we didn't have 5 or 10 years ago. You know, people actually want to be in the center of things. They want to be near people like themselves if they're going to be a tech entrepreneur. And New York is just bustling with this energy right now. And so literally, people are flocking here from all over the place, and the same kind of people that wouldn't have ever touched New York 10 years ago.
And so the face-to-face contact in this increasingly digital information age becomes absolutely central.
It's really true. And Boston doesn't have that.
No.
You know, and even like, you know, I think...
It's what, quarter the size of Brooklyn? Come on, let's be serious.
Yeah.
So you're talking about sort of these macro changes in the New York City economy. What are these tectonic changes that are creating these new mountains and valleys, new businesses, et cetera?
Well, I think the one thing is that you know, large businesses are not growing as much as they used to in New York. They're creating jobs elsewhere. We still have big, large finance companies, banks, other things, law firms, but the growth is for those companies is often elsewhere, where either internationally, where you see a lot of global growth, or where things are just cheaper. And so, small businesses, startups. Emerging industries have become much more important to the city's economy. So tech, you know, was so critical in helping New York do well economically in the last 5 years or so. It added balance to the city's economy. And getting back to your initial question about what the next mayor needs to focus on, look, Wall Street's not going to save the day. We still have a 9% unemployment rate in New York City right now. And I think that we need to make sure the next mayor continues to look at diversifying the economy, continuing to support sectors of the economy that may not have gotten a lot of attention from City Hall 5 or 10 years ago. So things like technology, but also design and creative industries. Creative industries and tech have been such a big part of what's happened in the last 5 or 10 years.
And this advice has gone out or will go out to the mayoral candidates?
I think they're seeing it. I think that a bunch of the mayoral candidates are talking about tech. I think a lot of them know that we can't rely on Wall Street too much, but you know, the devil's in the details. We'll see what they do.
Okay, now what is the impact of the presumed replacement, if you will, that's going on? You're losing Wall Street jobs and you're getting knowledge sector jobs. What else? What are you getting? You're getting the new tech jobs, but also you're getting sort of the low-wage service, hospitality based on, in part, on the massive increases and levels of tourism. What does the macro economy look like? Are we two cities? Are we multiple cities?
I think there's some truth in that. I mean, I think, look, the city New York has outpaced the rest of the country in jobs. That's a great thing. We are more diverse than ever before. That's a great thing. I think the one real downside and the challenging thing going forward is that, you know, so many of the new jobs being created are either at the high end or the low end. There's still middle income jobs in New York. Frankly, I'd call jobs like publishing middle class jobs. What's the problem is that there's fewer and fewer middle income jobs for people with limited educational attainment.
Go ahead, talk about what you call the skills gap.
I mean, I think this is one of the biggest challenges facing the next mayor. I really do think we have a skills crisis, because if you want to get a decent paying job, if you want to have a ticket to the middle class today, it's all about skills. It's all about knowledge attainment. The jobs that are growing in the city that pay decent wages really do require a 4-year degree. In some cases, an associate's degree at a community college, but increasingly, you need a 4-year degree. And there's far too many New Yorkers that really only have a high school degree or below. And when you do that, you're almost like relegated to a lifetime of dead-end, low-wage jobs. And so we're seeing an increase in those kind of jobs in New York. There's actually been a growth in retail jobs. There's been a growth in home health aides. There's been a growth in some of the hospitality jobs. And so people are getting employed, but there's more working poor in this city than ever before. And for those folks to actually get a chance to climb up to the middle class, we need to really hone in on how do we build the skills? How do we make sure more people go to community college or get a 4-year degree, and that those that go there actually finish and get their degree? And right now, there's a big gap there.
There certainly is. I mean, certainly from the university's points of view, looking at what the New York City public school system is graduating and what we need to remediate in our community colleges, certainly there. Now, you're talking about skills training in a knowledge sense, an educationally geared sense. But there's other types of skills training that include training in trades, which we don't do anymore, and there are markets for plumbers, electricians. So yes, we need the information workers to fill those skill gaps, but there are other skill gaps that the educational system, or the system, however defined, is not providing enough both incentive and information and access into these jobs.
Yeah, I think it's critical that the starting point is the schools. The public schools have got to get better. Right now, as you mentioned, too many people are graduating from the school system and they're not ready even for community college right now. They have to go through remedial programs. But I think that we have to be thinking much broader, much more holistically about kind of skills building in this city. I think career and technical education is a part of this. There are jobs, things like pest control, things like construction, and other trades, plumbing, where, especially given the aging of the population, there's going to be a number of retirements coming forward in the years ahead. There are going to be some job openings in those areas, and there's an opportunity for middle-income jobs there. But I think that also workforce development and job training programs more broadly. You know, at the federal government, there's been like a 40% or more drop in federal funding for workforce development into New York City. That hasn't gotten a lot of attention. That needs to be addressed. But also,
Wait, just stop for a moment. How do we address that? That is a huge percentage, and I know it translates into a lot of real money. That's a deficit. How is that deficit to be filled? And in fact, what we were getting was inadequate anyway. What do we do?
Yeah, well, frankly, and now it's just become a lot worse with what's happening in Washington, and so. You know, I'd love to see the next mayor take on the skills crisis, and I think one of the things that he or she could do is really, and just as Mayor Bloomberg has made things like smoking and firearms a kind of a national cause to get on a platform, I'd love to kind of see a federal investment in the skills gap and skills training, go down to Washington and really pitch for more money for workforce training. That's one thing I think that I'm not going to guarantee that that's going to work, but I'd love to see that. I think that, you know, we probably could be looking more to the private sector, the corporate sector for money. I think that the private sector.
Well, it's in their self-interest, essentially.
Yeah. You know, look, New York City is competing with more cities around the globe for talent than ever before. And for years, New York has always been able to get the best and the brightest from everywhere else. But now that you have Shanghai and Singapore and Dubai and London doing so well, not everybody comes to New York anymore. And so we're going to have to probably rely on grooming our own population for some of the key jobs going forward. And so we are going to need our private sector employers to help out with this and come to the table, and I think maybe they're part of the solution. But we've got to get everybody to understand that there is a skills crisis in New York, and I think that's number one.
Okay, and part of the new city, as I suggested in the introduction, was not only entrepreneur city and new tech city, but it's information city. And your study and the conference that you put around the libraries, the brick and mortar library was really an eye-opener, and the study Branches of Opportunity, folks should go to your website, download it, and read this really very well done, both analysis and recommendations. Talk about the study, the results, the recommendations.
Well, I mean, this really fits in with this skills gap. I mean, really, we're in an information age, as you mentioned, and people need more skills than ever before. And a lot of people, the school system just isn't it. Either they're past the school system, maybe they're immigrants that have come here and they're already adult
Or your
age.
seniors.
Yeah, or your seniors, and you also have just a ton of disconnected youth, people who the school system just isn't working for them. And so you need to reach some of these people in another way, and the libraries have become that. If anybody has gone around to their library branch recently, you know, they're packed, but they're not packed for people that are just browsing through the bookshelves. They have become community centers. They have become really key places in the information economy where people are going to take programs, whether it's ESOL classes, GED prep classes, computer literacy, financial literacy. People are getting the skills that they need in today's information economy, and they're getting it at libraries. And because there's 206 library branches pretty much in every neighborhood across the city, it's just they've got that access and convenience and just freedom to let you do what you want. You know, they're not one of those places that asks for your ID when you come in. So immigrants are flocking to libraries because, you know, they feel comfortable, they feel accepted, and they can get the tools to let them get ahead. It's
really astounding. I mean, if you've been to libraries like in the Flushing Library and other of the Queens libraries, which I'm familiar with, it is astounding. It's not only a social center and a senior center, but it's a job search center. It has really become a community node that's very, very important. And it's very forward-looking. One of the things that struck me in one of your reports is that librarians in one of the libraries in Queens got ahead of their constituents and ordered Nepalese books. And they were eaten up, and the videos were just eaten up. So you've got librarians being very creative and outreaching. What is it about librarians?
God, I can't say enough about librarians. I mean, frankly, librarians today have to be kind of, you know, technology experts, social workers, a little bit of everything. And one of the things that I think that you hit on a little bit when you talked about kind of the job centers is that most people don't know this, but today, something like 90% of all the jobs that are out there that are open, you have to apply electronically. Even a job like waiting tables today or retail jobs, most of them, you have to file an online application. And for so many people in New York, they either don't have a computer at home, or they don't have broadband access at home, or they don't have any idea how to write a resume. And so librarians have become that portal to the web for a lot of people, and helping them literally write a resume, fill out a job application, And not only that, they have the computers, they have the internet access there, but librarians are really helping kind of make everything work. And so many people are turning to the libraries for that kind of employment help. And at a time when we have a 9% unemployment rate, they are just critical.
We love libraries. My wife helped build the library in our town and is now the president of the board of trustees. Libraries, even in a town, a white middle-class town like Pequannock, New Jersey, it's not the library of old. It's not only the technology that's new, it's a new sense of mission. And it seems that the New York public libraries, the three systems, and we need to talk about that, sort of get it, but the public officials don't, which gets us to the third set of numbers that we talked about. 59%, which means that's the increase in circulation, and 8%, which is the amount of cut in finances. Come on, what's the story? Why don't they get it?
Well, first of all, let me go beyond that. Not only was there an 8% cut in budget, city budget for libraries over the past decade,
and capital go
but
ahead.
we also have a situation where the libraries have become so important as bricks and mortar institutions for people to go there to get these services, to take programs, to better themselves, but they're not open enough hours. The libraries average just over 40 hours a week. It is actually fewer hours than Detroit right now.
Right, and shorter hours than Columbus.
Yeah.
72 hours. That's the next set of numbers, 40, 50, and 72. Yeah. Boston, 50 hours.
Yeah.
Why?
So many
Why
cities.
is the library the target of the budget choreography, almost always?
I wish I knew the answer to that, but I think, look, they're an easy target. I think a lot of people take them for granted. I think that, it's just one of those things that for years they've been part of this budget dance where the mayor, threatens to cut, the city council restores most or all of it. But I think that a lot of public officials don't really recognize how libraries have changed and become so critical. I think the argument that we're trying to make and to show policymakers is that libraries are not just cultural institutions. And frankly, if you look at the city budget process, libraries are in there together. They're part of the Cultural Affairs and Libraries Committee in the City Council. If they were seen as part of the educational infrastructure, which frankly I think
the economic development infrastructure,
I think they'd be treated a lot differently, and I think a lot of policymakers don't understand the role that they are playing today, the fact that so many people are going to them for these services. And the city does have to address this skills gap, and I think that libraries are really part of the solution. And if the city and city policymakers were to see that, I think maybe it'd be easier to fund them.
Are there any folks within the city council or in the borough president's offices or citywide officials that have taken particular notice of the libraries? What's your message to them?
Well, I mean, clearly the city council has frequently restored a lot of the threatened cuts. I think Jimmy Van Bramer, the council member from Queens who heads that committee, has done a great job. Part of the capital process for the libraries, I mean, there's a lot of unmet needs for maintenance and other things.
$1.5 billion bucks?
Something like that. Just a huge, and just basic stuff that libraries, if you don't invest in the libraries, people aren't going to come, right?
Right.
And so, the council has done only a decent job, I think, in funding that capital project. I think that it depends what borough. We've actually seen in Brooklyn fewer capital dollars per capita than some of the other boroughs. Queens has been exceptionally good at having their council members, and especially the borough president, Helen Marshall, has been fabulous in providing her capital dollars for the library.
Yeah, but that's an iffy source of money, relying on the borough presidents and their priorities. Is there a way that you can stabilize and guarantee financing for the libraries?
Well, we'd love to take it out of that process where they're so subject to individual council or borough president discretionary funds. I don't think that's a smart process going forward. And there is a way to kind of, first to baseline the operating budget for the libraries. We should have a starting point every year so that the libraries can plan. Frankly, a baseline budget would also allow the libraries to go to the private sector and to wealthy people.
And leverage more money.
Leverage more money. But I think on the capital process, I think that there should be some kind of, basic process where the city provides a certain amount of money every year to address the library's capital needs and not, to the whims of individual council members.
Okay. We only have a couple more minutes. It's 2021. I'm ending my third term as mayor. I was so popular, we overthrew term limits once again and served the third term. What does this city look like? And what's your vision of this city in let's say, 8 years?
Well, I think one is going to be an older city. I think that we're right now one of the biggest trends that we're going to be seeing in the next 10 years is just the aging of the population, the aging of the baby boomers, and that's going to have a lot of impact on the city. I think that we're going to see more development happening in the boroughs outside of Manhattan, and I think that will generally be a good thing.
Let me ask a question. What do we need to get that more development? You've argued that the transit system here is absolutely essential. It's a bit of a digression. Without the ability to get people to work and get them home, you've got vast areas of the city that could be developed, and they're not being.
I really see transit as a middle-class issue. If we're going to keep the middle class in the city...
So I should argue this in my campaign.
You should, because,
I
mean, frankly, like, you know, people that are coming to the city today, those strivers, whether they're immigrants or young professionals or recent college grads, they're not able to live in Manhattan. They're not able to live just even in the kind of like waterfront areas of Brooklyn and Queens or places that are close into Manhattan. They're moving further and further out where they can afford homes and apartments. And we've got to have the transit service, the commute, be as short as possible and the transit service be as good as possible. And right now that there has been an underinvestment in transit in the boroughs. You know, if you look at places like Midwood,
tell me,
it's the commutes are so long, and people are not going to put up
the
with
Rockaways. I mean, I live in Queens. It used to take days.
It takes days from the Rockaways, but like, you know, even places like Midwood, which have seen more and more people going there, Kensington and Brooklyn, you know, those are great middle-class neighborhoods today. But if you don't have, you know, better transit, you know, people are going to stop going out there, or they're not going to be able to go any further than those places.
Okay. What's next? What's next for the center? What are you working on? We're
doing a really fun project looking at what are some great policy ideas from other cities in the U.S. and around the world that the next mayor could run with. You know, New Yorkers have always been so arrogant that the ideas start here. What can we ever do with an idea from Chicago or some other
311. I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of good ideas.
I think that the one thing that Bloomberg has done in recent years is he's kind of pushed the envelope. He's tried a lot of innovations, and I think that the next mayor's got to keep that going, and there's a lot of gaps we still have that need to be addressed. So we decided for this project to look at, well, what can we learn from elsewhere? Are there policies that actually have worked in San Francisco, in Oakland, in Chicago, in Milwaukee, you know, and lots of other places that are ready to be implemented right away here.
Excellent, excellent. So you're optimistic?
I am optimistic. We're at a good place, but there's a lot of things that still need to be done.
Thanks to Jonathan Bowles for being on the show. Join me next week here on CUNY TV. Excellent. Hello, I'm Doug Muzzio. Let us know what you think about this show. You can reach us at CUNY.TV. When you get there, click on the bar that says Contact Us and send your email. Whatever it is. Thanks, no thanks, obnoxious, do it. Send it.